Hi, guys. I trust that you are well. Welcome to yet another discussion where we're just looking at how we can assist our friends to improve in terms of their pass rate. So I'm just going to go straight into my presentation. And this evening, I'm looking at RE timeframes. I'm looking at RE timeframes. So why is this conversation important? This conversation is important because there are a lot of things that we do in RE that are timed. So we don't have the liberty to do things at our own pace. Everything is timed and it's regulated. And we have to do things according to the timeframes that apply to different things. So I was just thinking about it to say, when I went to school, I never thought that one day I would just find myself talking about, you know, time frames. I thought I would be talking about complicated things and maybe, doing complicated mathematics and complicated equations and maybe here and there doing complicated operations in hospitals, etc. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that this conversation sounds silly if you really want to think about it, but it's actually a very important conversation. So, importantly, I've emphasized that our different requirements are definitely timed. And it's very important at this stage for me to inform you that you need to know the difference between calendar and business days. So there are some requirements that you have to do within a certain number of days. So, for example, if a rep is debarred, the FSP has got within 5 days of the debarment to notify the FSCA or the authority. So the question is, are these calendar days or are these business days? So in this case, we want it to be clear to everybody, especially for exam purposes, but also even in practice. Imagine if you were counting your days as business days, yet you're supposed to be counting them as calendar days, or vice versa. You may find that you may find yourself putting yourself under unnecessary pressure, or you may be non-compliant. But also in the exam, you will show that you will make the wrong decision. So let's just use that example of the 5 days. So there is a difference between calendar and business days. Those two are not the same. Calendar days includes your weekends and your public holidays. So your public holidays are also included uh, in your days if we are saying they are calendar days. But when we talk of business days in this case will exclude your weekends, which means Saturday and Sunday is not counted. And we also do not count public holidays. Now, when it comes to Phase Act or the FIC Act, the two have got different types of days that apply to them. But generally and overally, if I can use that word, which I think is a better word, the Phase Act, the days under the Phase Act are calendar days. So when they say within 5 days, within 15 days, generally those are calendar days, which means we count any day of the week. And also we include public holidays. But there's only one day, and fortunately, it's one business day that applies in terms of your Phase Act. And that is where an FSP collects premiums and it has to put that money in a separate bank account. So a number of FSPs operate what we call trust accounts, but in terms of legislation, we call it a separate bank account for clients' funds. So if you've got funds, either that you received as cash or where there was no bank involved, and it's clients' funds, or it's clients' funds, and or for some reason that money is in your own FSP's bank account, that money you are given up to one business day. So let's say you receive that money on a Saturday. for one reason or the other, you receive it on a Saturday, that is not a business day. So it doesn't mean that by Sunday midnight, you must have deposited that money. Okay. You will have up to midnight on Monday. So your midnight. So we we had a nice conversation with a team somewhere where we ended up having to check what is 12 a.m. and what is 12 p.m. And it was a very interesting conversation. And we actually then ended up discovering that nothing is obvious when it comes to RE. But what we then learned in that conversation was that 12 a.m. is actually 12 midnight, and 12 p.m. would be 12 during the day. So at times, even in the exam, you are required to even know as to is it 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. So at times, you need to be specific in terms of by what time should that money should that money be in the separate bank account. Okay, maybe just in passing, I can also mention that where auditors are appointed, they are also required to report on that separate bank account. It's just something which is not really related to this, but because of the separate bank account, auditors are also required to report where an FSP is required to keep a separate bank account. They must also report that that bank account is there, but also they must report on whether the FSP is complying with the time requirements that apply in this case. So what I'm emphasizing here is that nothing is obvious when it comes to RE. You have to know the specifics. Now, in terms of your FICA, all your days will be business days. So where money has to be deposited, cash transactions must be reported within 2 days. Those 2 days are actually 2 business days. Suspicious or unusual transactions are reported as soon as possible, but not later than 15 days. And that 15 days is business days. So it makes life easy, I think, this distinction. Once you know the difference between phase and FICA, except obviously for the one business day, phase, it's calendar days, except one business day for depositing of funds into the separate bank account for clients. Then you are covered. Then when it comes to FICA, all your days are business days. So business days can be referred to as working days as well. Now, so at this stage, I move now and show you the different time frames that actually apply. So I start with the shortest time frame. So here I need to mention also that while we have done all our best to ensure that we can summarize all the time frames, we may have missed something, and we would like you to also, put more effort and just ensure that all these timeframes address all the timeframes that are applicable to you. But we have done our best to ensure that we try and capture all the timeframes. Now, the first one is 1 day, which is one business day, which we just talked about, where you have to deposit funds into the separate bank account for your clients. So if you receive funds into your bank account or with no bank involved, you have within 1 business day to deposit those funds into the separate bank account. Then 2 business days relate to cash transactions. These cash transactions relate to cash where it's notes and coins, foreign or domestic, excluding EFTs or electronic or any other electronic ways of transferring funds. Now, this limit has been increased. So I see here I'm using the old limit, but the limit has been increased to 49,999. I've been trying to check the criteria just to see whether they now include the new requirement, and I've not managed to put my finger on it. That's why I'm still using the old limit, but we will update you in where necessary if that limit we establish that it has been changed. So within 2 business days, you receive cash or you give cash as defined in the FIC Act. You have to give it, you have to report within 2 business days. Then 5 days relates to the removal of a rep if the FSCA advises you that a representative is now debarred, you have within 5 days, and these are calendar days, okay? Then vice versa, if you debar a rep, you have to notify the authority within 5 days as well. But we do have 5 business days. And this is why I think we're having this conversation to say, yes, you might know that 5 days apply, but there's also 5 business days under FICA where you have transactions or property that is related to terrorist financing. So you've got funds or property related to terrorist financing. You have within 5 days to report that transaction. All right. Then the next one is 7 days, where if the authority, which is the FSCA, when they request any documents or return within 7 days, you must submit that. And these are also calendar days. Let me mention something here in passing also. I have experienced in the compliance space a situation where you'll find that the authority is not satisfied by the financials that you have submitted, like your financial statements. They will write to you as an FSP. For example, one common thing that happens is you may find that directors have not signed the financials. So if they are not signed, no matter how accurate they are, the FSCA treats that as an incomplete submission, and they will tell you that we will deem you as having not submitted your financials. And therefore, you are given within 7 days to submit the signed financials, failure of which you will attract maybe some penalties or some sanctions, or some sanctions. So I'm just saying that this 7 days is very important. You have to comply with it. Now, this is my favorite slide. You know why? When it comes to 15 days, a lot of things happen within 15 days. And I'm looking at calendar days. So it's more of the fallback time frame that you may want to use or that you may want to refer to. Generally, if you have to meet a requirement, it may most likely fall within 15 days because it covers a lot of things. So, for example, where you are changing your business information, your addresses, your contact details, your bank account details. You know, at times you're unhappy with one bank, you move to another bank. That has to be communicated within 15 days. License categories you want to add or you want to remove, you want to change for representatives, for whether reps were under supervision, you're changing categories. You want to add categories to a KI, you have within 15 days to lodge that with the authority. Directors change, shareholders change within 15 days. Key individuals, information changes within 15 days. Representatives, details within 15 days. Compliance officers, auditors, details, operational ability, financial soundness. Those who are going to write the KI exam, you may be aware or you must be aware that under financial soundness, if there are early warning signs, which means you are meeting the requirements, but you are exceeding the requirements, but by less than 10%, you will be required to notify the authority, or you are aware of a situation that may compromise your ability to meet financial soundness. You have within 15 days. You must notify the authority, and by implication, that you will have within 15 days to do that. Then also submitting of CPD hours. When the cycle ends, you have within 15 days whenever a person completes, CPD hours, you have within 15 days to update the rep register. You have within 15 days to update the register for compliance, for COB, class of business, you have within 15 days. And also where you have debarred a rep, you have within 15 days. Let me address some friends who did RE some years ago. In the past, we used to say within 15 days, you notify the authority of a debarment. But that changed in 2014. Yes, in 2014, that requirement changed. Now you have within 5 days to notify. But the reasons and the grounds and documentation that supports your debarment has to submitted within 15 days. So you have two time frames for debarment. To notify, it's within 5 days. But to give the reasons and the grounds and the supporting documents, you have within how many days? Within 15 days. And also your KIs, your reps, when the cycle ends, or for CPD, they've got within 15 days to submit or to compile all their hours. And then also you have got 15 days to record your product specific training also in your competence register. When you refer to our record keeping presentation, we also talk about the competence register quite a lot there, so you can refer to that recording. Now, these were 15 days. So when you say days, it means it includes any other day of the week. Now, do we have 15 business days? Yes. When it comes to reporting of suspicious transactions or unusual transactions to the FSCA, that happens within 15 business days. Then 21 days, this is the time when the commissioner wants to declare a practice to be undesirable. It's the time that they will give to affected parties to make representations. Then 30 days, this is the time where if you made product supplier disclosures orally, you must do so in writing within 30 days. And also, now, again, the competence register pops up again, where the cycle for CPD has come to an end, which is by the 31st of May. You have within 30 days to make sure that you compile everything and update the hours for everyone. This is the time that is allowed to the FSP. Okay, so the 15 days is throughout the cycle, you update within 15 days. And when the cycle ends, let me go back. When the cycle ends, your KIs and your reps have got within 15 days to do their compilation. But you as an FSP, you have within 30 days to make sure that all the CPD hours are properly recorded and properly compiled. Then 30 days also applies to monthly updates of financial statements. This conversation has become very important to me when I have discovered that some FSPs are not actually doing monthly financial statements. And that becomes a problem. They are not updating their financial records monthly. So what happens is that they delay when their financial year end comes. Maybe it's February. They only discover in 4 months later or 5 months later, which is way outside the timelines, that they're actually insolvent. So if you are doing it on a monthly basis, you are actually able to see that the FSP is on track or is not on track. All right, but I just thought I must mention that in passing, but the requirement is that within every month, which I'm construing to be a 30-day, though of course some months have got 28 days and some have got 31 days. But monthly, you must update your records, your financial records specifically. Then 45 days is the time within which you have to keep telephonic records where you have advertised, but after that, you don't have to keep the records if clients don't take up financial products. So you have got within how many days? 45 days to keep telephonic adverts. Thereafter, if a client doesn't take any financial product, you can discard the record. 60 days applies to the time frame that an FSP that continues with an undesirable practice will be allowed to rectify or to correct or to make good any losses or damages that clients may have suffered by them continuing in the practice, you have within 60 days. 6 weeks is the time that the Ombud gives any FSP to resolve complaints. So within 6 weeks, you must resolve any complaints that your clients may have. Then 4 months is the time within which you must submit your financial statements after your financial year end. So if your financial year end is 28 February, you have within 4 months after the financial year end to submit your financials. So if it's February, you will have March, April, May, and June. So end of June, you must actually have submitted your financials. Now, 6 months is the time within which, when the Board Notice 194 became effective as at 1 April 2018, key individuals were required, who were already authorized, they were required within 6 months to submit the classes of business that they were managing or overseeing. And 6 months is the time frame within which a client or a complainant specifically who wants to lodge a complaint with the Ombud will be allowed to lodge their complaint. So if a complainant is dissatisfied within 6 weeks and they want to complain at the Ombud, they are given up to 6 months to lodge with the Ombud. If they don't lodge within 6 months from the time they were not satisfied at the FSP level, that complaint will prescribe, or it will not be acceptable to the Ombud. But also we do have another time frame that relates to the office of the Ombud. We are going to talk about it just now. Then 12 months, this is the time that must have passed, or that should have elapsed, for a rep to be reinstated if they had been debarred. It's the time frame that must have passed for a rep to be reinstated if they had been debarred. However, if a rep is debarred for lack of competence, which is class of business, RE, or recognized qualification, they can be reinstated immediately when they meet those requirements. Then again, 12 months applies where in the preceding 12 months, an FSP received more than 30% remuneration from a particular product supplier. They must disclose that information to their clients. So within the preceding 12 months, and you earned more than 30% of a commission, remuneration, fees, etc., from a particular product supplier, you must disclose that to your client. And please take note, it's more than 30%. Of course, today we're not talking percentages, but we're talking timeframes. But it's important for me to emphasize that this is not 30%, but more than 30%. Then again, 12 months applies to the time within which a rep that is working under supervision, and we call that a supervised rep, they have within 12 months to complete their class of business. Now, as if 12 months and 1 year are different things, we're talking here of 1 year. 1 year is for the CPD cycle, which runs from 1 June to 31 May. And again, it's the category experience for compliance officers. So when you are being appointed as a compliance officer, you are required to have a minimum of 1 year in the category, or yes, in the categories that you are seeking to be appointed. And your key individuals experience is also a minimum of 1 year. And compliance reports are submitted yearly, so I've put it there as well. And financial statements are also submitted yearly. Then 2 years, this is the time within which you must complete your RE. So for some reason or the other, if you are actually here and you are watching this and you have to do your RE, you have within 2 years from a date of first appointment. Obviously, guys, what I'm saying here is if it applies to you, because there are some categories and subcategories where this is not a requirement. Then 3 years is the experience for compliance officers in risk management or in compliance. Then, when it comes to the Office of the Ombudsman, 3 years also is the prescription period where the Ombudsman will not accept your complaint if more than 3 years has elapsed from the time you became aware you became aware of the complaint, or when you ought to have been aware of the complaint. Here is a scenario. Elton becomes aggrieved by one FSP, let's call that FSP XYZ Insurance. And that was in 2018. And Elton only discovers in 2023 that, man, I could have taken this matter to the Ombudsman. When I go to the Office of the Ombudsman as a complainant, the Office of the Ombudsman will ask, when did you become aware? And if I say it was 2018, they will simply count 3 years. 1, 2, 3. So that will be 2019, 2020, 2021. I should have lodged by 2021. Okay? So what will the Office of the Ombudsman do? They will refuse to accept that complaint. They will not accept it. Then 5 years is the minimum period for which you must keep records. Minimum 5 years. And also, 5 years is the period within which records must be kept under FICA as well. And then 5 years, this distinction, I think we make it clearly in the record keeping also presentation, that the General Code of Conduct says 5 years, it's record keeping. But in FAIS and FICA, it's a minimum of 5 years, or at least 5 years, specifically in FICA. Then 6 years will be the maximum period that a rep has to complete a qualification, and also by implication, that becomes the maximum period within which you may work under supervision. All right, so we have it from 1 day to 6 years, and those are your time frames that may apply to you, or that actually apply to you. All right, so I'll just check if we do have any questions or comments that may have been posted, so that I can just address them. But otherwise, that was it from me for today. And as I have said, this is specifically just to offer some moral support to our friends who may be writing their exams soon. Please make sure you take advantage of this. There is nothing as frustrating as a situation where you sit in the exam, you have a question that says a rep has been debarred. Within how many days should you notify the authority? And you know it's 5 days, but then in the options, it's 5 days. You've got 5 working days, you've got 5 business days, or you've got 5 days, and you don't know which one to pick. Everything is saying 5 days, and you don't know which one to pick. So you need to make sure that you take advantage of this conversation to avoid any anxiety and confusion in the exam, because I think we have tried to make the distinction clear. All right, I see there are no questions or comments, and I'm just going to leave it here for today, and all the best with your endeavors. Thank you.